and Noriko in Tokyo. Thank you so much for joining, guys.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to have you both as a follow-up because I've talked to you both individually last year. So, Helene, we talked 9 months ago. I was checking
Yes.
9 months ago, and we talked about your first business in Japan, Motainai Transition, which is like a coaching and consulting business, right? And Nori, we talked with you, Noriko, 7 months ago. And of course, we were talking about your business, Vegino. So it would be nice for this audience, if they didn't have a chance to watch those videos yet, maybe Helene, can you start and tell us a little bit about Motainai Transition?
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Noriko and she can tell us about Vegino. And then we'll talk about your combination effort at EKOLOKAL. Okay?
Okay, no worries. So, Motainai Transition, so like you said, is a boutique consulting to help especially businesses in Japan to kind of raise awareness about environmental issues with their, teams. And the idea is to do that in a very positive way and trying to create, engagement and action from the team members. So yes, that's what it is.
Wonderful. All right. Noriko, do you want to come back and you can tell us about Vegino just a little bit?
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, Vegino is primarily a free informational website and Instagram account that aims to promote the plant-based lifestyle or the greener way of living. And we don't really use the word vegan, or we didn't used to too much, because the idea is that we believe that the more people who eat one more plant-based food is more impactful and effective ultimately than trying to raise awareness and get more people who are 100% vegan always all the time. So that's kind of how it started, and it's still there. It has recipes, sometimes blog articles, and daily inspiration on Instagram.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And of course, Helene and Noriko, you have both been very supportive and very active, not only doing interviews with me, but you guys have also joined the workshop series that I tried to launch this year. And Noriko, you were teaching one of the workshops on vegan Middle Eastern food, and that was so popular. It was wonderful.
Thank you. It was fun.
And Helene and Noriko, you guys both joined when we had the kaiseki, the vegan kaiseki food. That was really fun.
Yes, that was amazing. I'm still using some of the recipes we learned like every day. So
Oh,
yeah.
great. Great. Yeah, it's a really nice concept. And then I see that you guys are also starting to incorporate the vegan videos. Noriko, I see Cook with Nori is on the EKOLOKAL YouTube, right? And
Yes.
and you also upcoming you have a vegan ramen event coming up, right?
Yes, that one I'm not teaching. Sadly or thankfully, I don't know. Yes, we're collaborating with the vegan store in Asakusa. So the owner, chef Suzuki-san, who is quite famous for making delicious mock dishes like boiled egg and chashu. What other things? She told me she's also created some pie, like crusty pie, like croissant kind of stuff. So yeah, we're collaborating with her, and she'll be the one leading and teaching us how to make vegan tonkotsu ramen with food scraps, and then helping us to change the taste so that we can go around the world from Asakusa by having different tastes from around the world.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining, Vada. She's joined from Haps. She says yum, and she should be sleeping, but we're glad you're not sleeping. We're glad you're joining us.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah. So let's start a little bit with how did you get the idea for EKOLOKAL? Where did that come from?
Maybe we should start by how we met first.
Okay, yeah.
So actually, during COVID, I was doing these monthly webinars with guests, across Japan, who are involved in kind of the sustainability space. A little bit like what you do, but not as intense as you do. And Noriko, she was my second guest in March or April last year. And we got on well, and we stayed in touch. And then around like June, July, I saw on Social Innovation Facebook group an advert for Impact Tech Social Change Maker, program. And I had this idea of a rough idea of EKOLOKAL, not exactly EKOLOKAL, but like in my head. And then I reached out to Nori and I was like, Nori, what about joining forces and trying to bring that to life or something like that in Japan and addressing, issues we both care about. So Nori, she's a really an expert and in plant-based, and I'm very interested. I came from the angle of more like zero waste, trying to reduce my waste. So combining our forces, that's kind of how we started the project.
That's great. Nori, anything to add? Noriko, did you want to add something about how it started?
Oh.
Noriko, maybe you can't hear us. Can you hear us? No? Nori.
I'm not sure.
Noriko. No,
Let me send. Yeah, it looks like she's
here. So I want to talk to you guys about the categories.
Yes.
So your can you hear, Nori? No? Can't hear us, maybe. So how did you choose what kind of focus, what kind of categories to use for the website and app?
Yeah, so we didn't want to have too many of them, like so that it's not, it's overloading people. And also, what I should mention first is that we decided to start with food because it's one of the primary needs as human. And we try to think about what are the key problems, with the food industry today, and we try to address these points. So one is, obviously the impact of, the meat industry and also like any kind of animal products on sustainability. So that's why we have plant-based, organic, with all these issues around pesticides. Plastic-free is this idea that we know that in Japan sometimes it can be challenging, to be fully zero waste. But sometimes you can go for the not as bad option, which is packaged in a material that might not be fully sustainable, but at least is less impactful in terms of end of life compared to plastic. And then zero waste, which is kind of obviously no packaging. And fair trade is another one because sometimes you choose to consume products from other areas in the world. So trying to choose options which are not as let's say not as bad. So maybe people are taking care of the way they are grown and trying to not to damage the environment or the people that are kind of in these cultures. So that's how we chose the criteria.
Yeah, it's great. It's very difficult. I have a very wide view of sustainability. And in this series, I talk to people about perpetuating culture and vegan and low waste and plastic free. So that it's such a wide variety of things that
Yes.
you could list and maybe expand in the future. But I like how you've tried to start with things that you're passionate about and you think are hard to find in Japan. Yes. I love this survey that you guys did, and you asked a bunch of people what's difficult or what do you think about having a sustainable lifestyle, and you had 3 main points. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, of course. So yeah, it was quite interesting because both like Japanese and non-Japanese people answered similar things. So the first one was it's not convenient, it's expensive. The third one was there's a lack of access to the information. So it's not just about the language. And another point we didn't necessarily mention when, so obviously it was not like necessarily as one of the points in the survey, but something we saw through the survey is that people feel quite lonely. And sometimes they get a bit discouraged because they feel very lonely. They feel a lot of pressure maybe from people around them, and they kind of give up. So yes.
Noriko, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, I'm back on
Oh,
my
yay!
phone.
Good,
Sorry
good,
about
good.
that.
No problem. So we were just talking about the 3 reasons to start EKOLOKAL, and the first, it's inconvenient, it's expensive, and most important reason to start EKOLOKAL is people don't know how to get the right information.
Mhm.
You said, was it 150 people that you talked to, Japanese and English speakers? Is that right?
Yeah, I forgot exactly. We had like this one was just a survey, 100 and more than 150. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But I think this is very common, not only in Japan. I think these are the reasons people aren't more sustainable anywhere, really. It's that lack of community. You guys did a great interview with Zenbird, was it?
Yes.
And one of the things that you said there was you wanted to not only give information, but you wanted to build a supportive community for people.
Yes.
Because this concept of getting information is important, but people also want to feel mentally and emotionally supported for making the more difficult choices. Is that right?
That's completely right. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yes.
So, are you still pursuing the app? Can you tell us, for people who haven't heard of EKOLOKAL before, can you tell us how you envision this will work? Because it's still in the first stages. It's still planning stages, right?
Yes.
So tell us, how do you envision this will work in the future?
So you're right. So at the minute we have just a website, which is kind of a prototype and is more like a tool. And actually with Nori, we are kind of glad we didn't start, any app development before, because we were a bit struggling, the first few months, because we had this vision of, this community element. And we had that, with our Instagram and the events we are doing. And then we had this website, which is just a big map. And we were like, how do we connect the two? We were really struggling. And we found like the way to connect them together. And so this is not visible yet on the website, but we are working on a new version of the website, and then in the future, the app, which will be, people will be able to kind of, indicate their interests, their priorities in terms of sustainability, where about their kind of areas, and then create their maps with favorites, and they will be able to share, and people will be able to follow these maps, and so that means people can get connected with each other. They can build their own maps with their favorite stores, and also feel part of the community.
It's kind of like the Spotify of sustainable maps.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. So if anybody goes to the website now, you can see some of the listings. Most of the listings are around the Tokyo area. There's a few in Hiroshima, because you have ambassador in Hiroshima who's helping a little bit, I think.
Yes.
I don't know who it could be. Who
I
is
don't
that?
know.
And tell us about some of the listings that you guys have put into the system so far.
Yes. So I don't know, maybe that's something we want to mention, is that our vision and what we realized both, as we were like going through our journey into sustainability, is that if you go to more conventional stores, like supermarkets, it's sometimes difficult to make the right choices, and it's sometimes more expensive, the sustainable options you have. But actually, by going to smaller shops, more local shops, family run, which are working direct with producers or making the products on the spot, you can have access to more eco-friendly options, and also it's usually cheaper. And I don't know, Nori, if you want to talk about the vegan and the plant-based aspect of things.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of the similar thing, and we realized that you don't have to look for an all vegan place. Of course, there are also sites like Happy Cow that kind of has this similar function for vegan, but there could be a nice local restaurant that you really like that was able to accommodate this one vegan person in your group. And actually there's quite a few in my area because surprise surprise, I'm vegan, and these things are not necessarily available on Happy Cow. And so what we realized is that Happy Cow is also good, and Google is also good, but like these kind of local gems, as you will, and not really is not an information that you can find today, except if you're local and you live in that area and you've had some kind of interaction that helped you find that. So that's kind of where we're like, hey, let's get everyone to submit their favorites too, and if you find something, then do tell us about it. That's kind of how it.
Yeah, that's great. It's like, I mean, Happy Cow is only for vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, right? It doesn't include places which don't use plastic or have organic things, right? So what you're doing, your concept is really expanding on the existing models to give more sustainable people seeking sustainability, like so many of us are. Need a little bit more help, right?
Yes.
I love this Eco Shop Along event that you did, because I think it so perfectly shows how people will be able to use the app like in the future. And also doing this kind of eco tour, such a great idea. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. So basically, one thing we are trying to do with our app is to kind of showcase like I was saying, those small businesses, and we were, thinking, and how can we kind of get people, on the journey and try to kind of create some sort of connections, even in the time of COVID. So that's kind of how we thought about doing this eco tours. So we go around in one area. We select in advance a couple of stores which we think are kind of really, like Nori was saying, local gems. And we go with everybody around these stores and, tell them what to bring in advance, what kind of container, what kind of products we will probably explore. And then, we are just there to kind of to make the connection. And the first step kind of, because sometimes it can be intimidating, going into a store and asking, oh, can I use my container? Or can I do this? Or whatever? Or is this organic? And so we are trying to bridge that gap. And so, yes, that's the idea.
Yeah. Can you describe some of the shops that you went to? People can see it in the video. I'm showing the picture now of the tofu shop, beautiful, handmade, delicious, healthy tofu. And people in your group bring their own container, and the ladies are putting it in the container. It seems so simple once you see it in action. So it's so wonderful that you've made these little videos explaining it, I think.
Yes, and we are trying to make it less intimidating. So hopefully it can inspire more people to try.
Yeah. So on the video I saw the tofu place. I saw the bakery. I love that you guys were able to get your breads in your own bags. This is such a hurdle in Japan still, right?
Yes. You have to be fast.
You have to say it many, many times. And I also love you found some bulk shops. So places that will sell different items by weight or by quantity, and you can use your own packaging. So I know this is a lot more common in other countries. It's still very new in Japan. Are you feeling like it's growing, like there is more interest in this kind of eco shopping?
Slowly, I guess. Actually, one interesting note is that Japan used to be very eco-friendly. in the sense that it's kind of, sort of embodied elsewhere with all these bulk stores, bring your own container, bring your own bottle, etc. Just kind of piece of history, but like, I was talking to this woman who's actually doing sustainability investments. So she's been in finance, but just specifically for, ESG and now SDG investments. And she's about mid-50s. And she was saying, you know what, I grew up in a house that didn't have a dustbin, or at least we may have had one dustbin. And that dustbin we emptied out like once every 3 days. And the only thing that was in there was tissue paper that, you blew your nose with or something. And they would just burn it in a can in their garden. So how did that happen? Most of the shopping was bulk: tofu, miso, even shoyu, soy sauce. All of that, you just reuse the original container that you bought it in, or you bring whatever container you have. So that was kind of the norm in Japan until 2-3 decades ago. But suddenly we had this influx of convenience and plastic, and here you have it. We're kind of now behind the global wave of all of this. I would almost say it's a trend. But yeah, it's kind of a shame because Japan was actually doing this kind of lifestyle only until 2-3 decades ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And like, we had a beach cleanup yesterday. We do the third Sunday of every month. We try to get out even just for an hour and do a cleanup on the riverside or beach. I know you've got one coming up I want to talk about later. That's a great event to do. But something we often find is the plastic PET bottles. So I often fantasize about them bringing back the old style Coke machines or drink machines where it's in the glass container, you drink it there, you leave it there, it's washed and reused. And that was here in Japan when I first came 30 years ago.
Wow.
Let's bring it back. Yeah, it's so much better.
It's not so long ago as well.
Yeah, it's not broken down and made anew. It's washed and reused, and those are the kinds of examples we want to bring back, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago.
No.
Yeah, it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a shame, and so I don't know if people have noticed, but our Instagram is themed a little bit in the Edo period, and that comes from our personal, I don't know, it's kind of like our personal interest and passion that we think we could learn from the Edo period, which, again, piece of history, sorry about this, but Japan, I think, was one of the rarer forms of enabling a fully circular economy with the Edo period. In that being, even things like human waste was recycled in the form of compost and growing vegetables. There was even a price on human waste. That's how connected everything was in the Edo period, and so we feel like there's a lot to learn.
Isn't that amazing? And I know you guys have talked to Asby Brown, who's he's an expert on this Edo period sustainability, and he's been on this series as well. And you've talked to him on your EKOLOKAL series or multi-night transition series. And it's so interesting to think about a world where everything has a way to be reused or go back to nature, to become compost, making clean water. It doesn't pollute anything, because we are still living in a circular environment, but we've kind of forgotten and moved away from it, right? So it's like we're fooling ourselves thinking that we don't live in something that'll come back and harm us, but it does.
Yes. And some people might argue, maybe that, in older times, maybe women were not working, so they didn't have, they had the time to do all these things, and it's taking time. And that's kind of true, but in another way, not. Like, I personally believe that there should be more focus on how we can make this circular system more convenient for, everyone, rather than trying to, innovate on, new materials or, yeah, I believe there could be ways to make it convenient, the way, the circular way.
Definitely. I think it's about so many things, right? It's about a change in policy so that there is a charge for something which is so devastating for the environment or communities. So you have like an environmental tax or a social impacts tax added to very damaging things like single-use plastics. And then if the cost goes up, people will use less of it, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw that happen with the charge on plastic bags. That has been very positive in how people are using so fewer plastic bags in their everyday, right? They just, it helps you think about it a little bit when you have to pause and be like, do I want to pay extra 3 yen? It doesn't seem like a lot, but a lot of people change because of it, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
But
That's
at the
true.
same time, I think we have to lament that because of the extra charge on the 3 yen for those bags, at least I've personally witnessed a whole horde of people who are now hoarding the smaller bags, you know, that you can put your tofu. I don't actually know what they're for, but you get these rolls of free plastic in almost every supermarket.
Yes.
And now I see a lot more people going for those and even using that as the alternative. So I've seen people walk out the supermarket with that.
Me too. It's
And it's
driving me
like-
crazy. So
Right.
until they have a charge for that, it's not really going to change. And you know, when you do your cleanup on the beach, we usually used to see a lot of plastic shopping bags. Now we see more of these thin supermarket bags because people have switched to using those more instead of the shopping bags. And probably environmentally just as damaging, really, even though they're thin. So yeah, these are things that we need to reassess and make a new strategy and target and try to reduce that again, right?
My perspective. Oh, sorry. My perspective is that I have the feeling that sometimes the why is not explained so clearly. So people, they just don't really understand what's the point of that. So they don't really care, you know, they don't understand that, you know, by switching to another, that's the same problem. And, you know, I remember when, you know, a few years ago, like this came in France as well, you know, they banned, you know, plastic bags. And I had the feeling, you know, they were making, I'm not saying it's better or whatever, but they were making these reusable bags, you know, supermarkets, trying to encourage people, you know, next to the cashier, encouraging people to take these. And I don't think there's a really anything being done as obviously in Japan, like to try to encourage people from, you know, bringing their own bags or reusing some bags. And
I mean, when you replace one plastic with another plastic, are you really fixing anything, right? We need to rethink that, and I think make everything biodegradable, right? Like I got fooled by a major convenience store chain which has started writing on their rice ball wrapper that it's biofilm. And so I decided to test it. And so I put it into my garden. I had it in water. I had it in the sun. I had it in the shade. And after a month, none of it changed at all. So it's definitely not biodegradable. It's definitely not any better than regular plastic. I mean, on the one hand, if they're using less fossil fuels to make it, that could be a little bit better. But the image that they're giving people is you can put it in the garden. It's biodegradable, and it's not. We need to test these things and really make sure that that's true. We can't just trust big companies because sometimes the greenwashing is very strong.
I think there's
they want.
Go for it.
No, I don't think they were counting on the fact that many people don't have, you know, gardens or compost. I don't think they thought that somebody would actually throw that in the garden and see, you know, after a month.
but what we find in cleanups is that no matter what you have, it ends up in the waterways.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't, it's not intended for the waterways, but it ends up there. So unless it's biodegradable, it's not really an improvement on the existing problem, right? Because everything ends up in the water. Things you would never expect, you know, lids. all kinds of wrapping and loads of plastic of many different kinds. Yeah.
Which,
And maybe
sorry, no, I just wanted to point out that I'm noticing comments, and I'm not sure if we're addressing or we see these.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to fit it in. Joanna has a comment from Facebook. She says, what was the inspiration for the both of you personally, Noriko and Helene, to start on this journey? Not necessarily with EKOLOKAL per se, but in general.
Yeah, if you want, I can start. Maybe I wanted just to make a point very briefly on bioplastics and things like that. Just to mention that sometimes we have this image that bioplastic is biodegradable, but not all bioplastic are biodegradable. And there's a lack of transparency and clarity on all of these materials. And not all of them that are said to be biodegradable are actually biodegradable in the condition of your house. Some of them need like a proper facility with very high temperatures. So beware, like Joy was saying, of greenwashing with bioplastic, biodegradable stuff.
Be careful. And even if it is 100% plant material,
Yes.
You still have to have a different facility sometimes.
Yes.
So one of my most exciting adventures in California was when I went to Recology Recycling Center. It sounds crazy, but I loved seeing how a huge city like San Francisco is at 80% diversion from landfill, the same as Kamikatsu in Japan is, in a very small city. So there's over 1 million people. They do curbside pickup. So I was so excited to see how they separate all the garbage, how they have 100% composting. But even there, they have plant-based biodegradable containers that they cannot put in with the compost. Not yet, because it's a very different kind of material, right?
Yes.
So even then, they have to be really careful. So I think we're a little bit ways off in terms of biodegradable wrapping or containers. But one of your EKOLOKAL ambassadors who I interviewed, they are importing real biodegradable plastics to their Kancha farm. Is it Kancha farm? Yeah.
Yes.
In Kagoshima.
Yes.
And they test it. They put it in their compost. They see it breaks down. So then when they use it with their customers, they feel very confident. This is biodegradable. You can trust it. We test it all the time. And I think that's what businesses have to do.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And sorry, Joanna, maybe answering your question. So the inspiration personally on my journey was very slow, and mostly inspired by very friendly discussions with some friends who were more advanced on their journey. Sometimes documentaries I saw, such as a movie that is called Demain, which is tomorrow in French, which is very popular in France and has been has been a tipping point for many French people, I guess. And that's kind of where this journey kind of started. And yes, it was very slow. I don't know if Nori, you want to share yours?
Helene, I think it's really interesting, and I learned last time I talked with you how you came from like a design background, designing with packaging for kind of high-end brands. So you have a really interesting perspective on packaging, I think, because of your background, don't you think?
Yeah, so I was I was a packaging developer, so like an engineer. So I was working with, on one side, the marketing guys and the brands, they want this vision, the beautiful packaging. And then I was working with suppliers, trying to find the right materials, the right technical constraints to make sure that we could realize the 2D vision into something that is realistic. And that's was kind of also a realization. My job actually helped me to realize that there was an impact. We were unfortunately maybe creating a need for products which were not necessarily, mandatory or necessary. And I started feeling a bit bad about that, like cognitive dissonance, I guess. And that was like, I guess, something that got me thinking about changing career fully and not just staying in my company and trying to maybe be more involved on the sustainability space from within.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's a really interesting perspective to come from, designing packages and then trying to fight against wasteful packaging in your next
Yes.
part of your career. I think it's very informative, right?
Yes, and I loved my job, you know. It was a very fun and interesting job, but yes, fun is not enough for, now, like, we need to be aware of, what kind of planet we want to live, for the future. So yes.
Yeah, I think if you were still doing that job, you would have to ignore a lot of the obvious things you saw which were wrong, right? And
Yes.
I understand the argument, right? Like a lot of people often say, but if you're very enthusiastic and if you're very like an activist inside the company, you can change them from the inside. Don't worry, you can have an influence, right? People always tell me that. Like I went to a sustainability conference and I met someone from a fossil fuel company who was there, and they want to know what kind of conversations are happening at the sustainability conference. But when I was talking to her, she was so disillusioned and saying that she really thought she could change the company for the better from the inside, but actually now she felt like she was on her way out because she had given up trying to make positive change. So it's
Yeah.
maybe some people can do it, but I think it's very hard to change
It's
from the
very hard, yeah. And also fundamentally, and that's my perspective, like especially for bigger companies, they have like sometimes, shareholders, they have like, objective, they have to grow, they have to meet, their financials. And it's, if you want to be sustainable, you should consume less. So you should produce less, you should encourage your consumers not to buy your products. And that's not working for companies. So maybe that's a bit of a, but yeah, that's how I felt with my job. I was like, I'm part of a system that is encouraging people to buy lipsticks or fragrances. Yeah.
over consumption. That's the
Yes.
business model of
Yes.
so many companies, right?
Yes. Unfortunately.
Noriko, do you want to talk about your initial interest in Echo? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it kind of just, I guess the turning point was when I went scuba diving in 2011, 2009 maybe. So I was not like super into eco or anything. I didn't want to intentionally, damage the earth or anything, but didn't grow up being super into it. Except that I did grow up in the UK in London, and so it was kind of like a hygiene standard. You do think about the rainforest in Brazil. You do think about not wasting paper in your day to day, or you turn off more lights, if you're not in the room and stuff like that. But it was never to me something personal until I went scuba diving in 2000, whenever it was, got my license. And the guy who sort of took us to get our license, and the instructor said, oh, this place, like, I was amazed. I was like, wow, this is a whole new world, and this is like the land of, and I love water, I love fish, I love swimming. So I was just amazed. And then the guy said, this place was more beautiful 10 years ago. There was more coral. And I said, okay, what's damaging the coral? And I thought it was the divers, their fins got in the way or something. He said, no, it's global warming. And I couldn't really piece it together. I didn't care too much about it then. But then with the diving, I tried to go, at least once a year from then on. And almost every time I go to any diving spot, it's the same. Oh, it was a lot more this, that, the other 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm like, so what happened? Oh, there's less fish, there's less coral. Okay, what's the root of that? And usually it's humans or global warming or a combination of both. And then I started thinking, oh my gosh, like, I had not seen this firsthand. And so it never occurred to me to be something urgent or something that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Why would it harm such a massive planet? But it didn't occur to me that actually it was having a big impact that, people who live close to the ocean can see change in, short span of 5-10 years. And I think that's what really got me thinking, in my day-to-day, how can I be better? And then the larger trigger was becoming vegan. I didn't do it for the environment. I selfishly did it out of curiosity for myself. But then after that, reading up about the implications of eating animal products, I saw the massive effect it had on the environment. And that's kind of what spoke to me and said, you know what? I don't see a reason for eating these again. So then I just never went back to eating any of the animal products.
I'm muted. I think seeing changes in the world around us definitely is a huge impetus for change, right? And then other people in the series have said for them it was doing an audit, like a self-audit, and thinking about how much trash you have in your own house and where does it come from, and then trying to change that. So that is often the case, isn't it, for sustainability, that it is really case by case. It depends on who you are, what you want to do with your life, where you live. It's really difficult to make blanket rules or blanket approaches because sometimes it really doesn't apply to everybody. But I think where you are, if you look around like you did, Nori, with the scuba diving, and you notice changes year on year, and you start to think, what can I do to lessen that impact? That's a great example of how to spur yourself forward to make difficult changes, right?
Yeah, you need to figure out the why, for yourself, like why you're doing it. Otherwise, it's, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think it won't drive you.
Yeah. I think it's easier to give up if you don't have a real reason for the why, right?
Yes. Yeah. And maybe something we already spoke about together, Joy, but for me it's very important to not feel guilty and to try, even if sometimes, you have some challenges and you're not 100% perfect, it's very important not to beat yourself up and keep on going rather than just saying, let's just give up and not care about this anymore. It's too complicated for me.
That is so important. And like what you guys are doing, trying to build a community, a supportive community of people who will support each other on their journey, that's really vital. I mean, how many of us were trying a little bit to be sustainable, and then you saw the videos or all the social media about the zero wasters who had this tiny jar of plastic, and then you go to your normal supermarket and you're like, but I can't buy anything that's not in plastic. It's impossible, right?
Yeah.
And you get overwhelmed with it, right?
Do you want to tell Joy about your plastic whaling challenge?
So as of 2021, January the 1st, I started recording how much plastic plastic rubbish I have. And I have this secret Instagram account that I tell no one about, but that's where I record it. And, it's kind of funny because in January, I was pumped about it and I'm like, I'm going to do this. And for some reason, I think it's actually coincidence, every week I decrease the plastic consumption on week. And then come February, suddenly it just shot back up. And I couldn't for the life of it figure it out because I was, really trying to reduce plastic. And I think what it was in hindsight is some of the bigger things that come out frequently, like a bottle of soap or whatever, detergent. I changed my shampoos and things by then, but I think, the odd things that still come out that you've had for a while and then you use up. And every time those things came up, that added like 100 grams to my plastic. And just to give you a sense of what that does to my daily on average is now like 30 grams a day. And so if I get a bottle that's 100 grams, that like kills it for me. And I'm just like, no, this week is done. But yeah, the point is like, despite that, and I'm still doing it, I feel like it's still the journey, because I do see that coming into April, it is actually starting to become a downward trend where, once you start replacing things like the small things, peanut butter used to be plastic, now it's glass, or, homemade, shampoo, and, you change them one by one as you use up your old one. And I think, across a span of a couple of months, I've come to realize that, hey, it is actually going down, despite the fact that I do still pick up some odd things at the supermarket that has plastic in it. But, I don't shoot myself for that. I think it's like we all say, it's the journey that counts.
It's so important. It's like trying to meditate. Have you ever tried to meditate? Right? And then meditating, clearing your mind and meditating is so hard. And you're trying and it's quiet, and then all these thoughts are rushing in your head. And I remember my yoga teacher saying, just acknowledge that things are not going well and let it go, and I think we have to do that for sustainability, right? Be like,
Yes.
this is your only choice. You're gonna have to buy some food. Just let it go. Try to do better next time. Just keep looking for better options, but let it go.
Yes.
It's really funny, isn't it?
Mm.
I like how, like during the Eco shopping tour that you did. So even though you go to one shop that they do have things in plastic, but there's a reason to go to that shop, even though it's in plastic, right? Because it's local, or because it's organic, or because it's made at a really ethical farm or something. So I think this is a good example of, it's not always black and white, right? It's kind of a gray area.
Yes. Yes. And I think especially in Japan, like I guess plastic especially is a very very, like, it's a challenge, I would say. So you usually have the choice between plastic-free pesticides or organic plastic. So we are trying to accommodate depending on what people are people prefer. But actually, there are options. We don't necessarily have them yet on the website. But if you order directly from the farms, it's actually much easier to get, the best of both and get organic and plastic-free products. So that's kind of an interesting thing to know about.
Yeah,
well, I would add to that, because
I'm excited about that. Yeah,
some farms you really need to fight for it.
Yeah,
not fight for. That's not the right word, but I've had to convince maybe one or two farms in the past, and actually they've been very open. But they were like, we're only doing this for you. So
yeah,
I think. But it's nice. It opens up communication that, I've never emailed or talked to farmers before in my life. And now I have in my inbox like 5 different farmers.
That's awesome.
Threads, because I communicate with them and ask for no plastic, or
and you're planting a seed, right?
Yes.
Like you're planting a seed in their mind. They're ruminating on it, thinking about it, and then the next time you ask, or somebody asks, it's a little bit easier because they've heard it before. So it's not coming out of nowhere. I had to work on the farmers that we get deliveries from, and now they do send me a box of beautiful veggies all wrapped in newspaper, and I just love it. I love it. But it took them a while to convince them that really I was okay with that I really didn't want plastic, and I'm much happier with this. And Nori, don't you find that when you're trying to order vegan things, quite often people will say, but it has no taste. I can't make it for you because it's going to have no flavor. And you have to argue back and forth. No, I like it that way.
I was actually funny because Helene and I were talking earlier today about when I was in France and I ordered something, that had butter on it and some bit of cream. And you should have seen the waitress's face when I asked her for that dish without cream. And she was just like stuck. You just said what? Like, this is France and you're asking for no cream and no butter? And she just stopped. She didn't say anything. She just stopped. And I was like, And then she's like, no cream? She actually repeated like, no cream, or, you know, in French. And I said, yeah, bring it on. So yeah, you know, completely agree. Like that's what happens when you try to, you know, customize vegan if it's not on the menu.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Like when we were in France as well, and we were talking to some shopkeepers, and we were saying, do you have anything vegetarian? And they would say no. And then we'd be like, well, what about that sandwich? It looks like just cheese and salad. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't have meat, it doesn't have fish, but it's not vegetarian. You know? Like,
Yes.
so there was just a concept difference, right? Like we're using translators, or the word just wasn't hitting. So it was by chance it was vegetarian, but they wouldn't call it vegetarian. And I think we had this for a long time in Japan, didn't we? There was no easy word for vegetarian, whereas at least now people really understand what is vegetarian, what is vegan, even gluten-free. Like the information gap has certainly become lessened, don't you think?
Yes and no, I'd say.
Yes.
I mean, the gap has definitely gotten smaller. Yes, like if I say I'm vegan, people at least understand it's a dietary choice. But then do they understand what that means? I'm not so sure. Like I think Burger King recently came out with a plant-based Whopper, one of their
Whopper,
signature
yeah.
Whopper, and they labeled it plant-based Whopper. But it turns out their bread has the milk and the mayo has the egg, so it is plant-based patty maybe, but it's not a plant-based product, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're a vegan and you want to eat it, basically you have to ask for it without the bun and no mayo, so you're left with like lettuce, tomato.
Which is, it's so strange, because when they do it in America or other countries where people are more strict, the whole thing is vegan. The whole thing is plant-based, and they will cook it in a pan instead of on the grill. So there's just, it's like a learning curve still in Japan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We only have 8 more minutes. So I want to talk more about the events and the workshops that you guys are doing now and what's coming up for EKOLOKAL. What are you guys planning? Is it top secret, or can you give us a hint?
Well, I can touch on the events, and Helene can maybe cover the top secret part. No, but like you mentioned, it's this weekend, 24th, we have the ramen workshop coming up. Sorry for those of you outside of Japan, it's an offline event in Tokyo, Asakusa, and even if you are in Tokyo, sorry, it's sold out for now. But please do reach out and stay on our mailing lists if you're interested. We do hope to do more of events like these. We do also organize the Eco shop-alongs that we've been talking about. So we try to do like one a month on one of the weekends. We pick an area in Tokyo, not Tokyo, sorry, kind of Kanto, Tokyo area. So if you're interested in a particular area, please do let us know. Or if you have a favorite area that you can, guide us through, that's also another option. But those are the things that we have as regulars and upcoming.
Yes. And also we have, like you were mentioning, we have like the YouTube channel where we do, if you can't join us for the tours, you get a recap and some cooking from Nori for now. And then like there's not really any top secret stuff going on, I would say, but it's a little bit like what we were saying earlier, sorry, we are trying to develop the new version of the website with the community element, more, incorporated in there. And also looking at developing more, offers for businesses. So that's kind of the plan at the moment. So if you're in Japan, you're working for a company and you're interested in raising awareness with your teams about environmental issues, we are soon going to offer services for, companies, whether in Japanese or in English. So don't hesitate to reach out. We can tell you a bit more. It's still in the design process.
That's great. Do you want to introduce about the EKOLOKAL Ambassadors?
Yes, of course. And so Actually, Joy is one of our ambassadors. Thank you. And so
happy to be a part of the team. Yeah, it's awesome.
And so when we started, it's a little bit like what we were saying about the community element. We were thinking that people, may want to identify themselves, with some role models, like approachable people, which are a bit more maybe local, or who have like similar interests. We have some, for example, some ambassadors who have like a farm. Some of them are interested in permaculture. You like Joy, you're doing a lot of podcasting around sustainability and traveling. So, and people, a wide range of people, Japanese people, foreigners, like all kinds of profiles, so that people can find some inspiration and can kind of, we want to kind of connect everybody together and kind of allow that kind of support network. So the ambassador, they are kind of the flags for that, if that makes sense. I don't know, Nori, if you want to add.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. And like we said, community building is our core. It has been and it will be. So the ambassadors, hopefully, will be growing that community as well, and getting more people on board. So if you're also interested in becoming an ambassador, please reach out to us too.
That's great. You also have 2 initiatives. It will change your life in 7 days, and you have an upcoming beach clean, if you want to mention.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the Change Your Life in 7 days. So we are working on the bilingual version of the website. So we have one in Japanese and one in English. And so if you go on the website, you can get the English one for now, but soon we'll have the Japanese one up. If you want the Japanese one, just send us a message on Instagram. And the second event, like the event we're organizing next month, it's a beach clean with one of our ambassadors. And so, yes, it's going to be a very fun event, meeting, people, being outside and trying to pick up some trash. So yes, we love organizing these events with our ambassadors or, stores like the one we did. We are doing this weekend with the vegan store in Asakusa. So we are trying to do more and more of these like collaboration events. Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So the one this weekend, it looks like it's sold out really fast. You're going to try to do more of those. Very popular.
Yes. We were a bit surprised, to be honest with you, because that was one of our first like properly paid events. And we were, okay, people are going to be interested? And yeah, actually it sold out pretty fast. We were very, very pleased. And yes, and it's great as well for small businesses like, Suzuki-san from the vegan store, because it's an opportunity for them to get, more customers, especially in these times with, coronavirus. It's a bit more challenging for some of them. So we are also, it's great because it's a way as well to support these local businesses.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I know a lot of restaurants and eateries in particular are really struggling now because coronavirus, the lockdown has been lasting. So you want to be safe. You want to make sure everybody's safe, but you want to support local businesses. Hopefully, maybe we can have more events outside. We might be able to have indigo dye workshops outside, or cooking lessons outside, or washi paper making outside. I think that might be the next kind of workshop that I would love to do, collaborate with local businesses and do something like you guys are doing. That's a great idea.
Yes, tell us when you do your next event. We'll be sure to share that on our Instagram and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you guys are so supportive, and the vegan workshops have actually been the most popular. So learning how to cook vegan food, I think this is something that it's definitely in high demand in Japan, that a lot of people they're interested, but that's kind of a big hurdle, like how to do that. So it's nice to see that your vegan ramen also is very popular.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we have 1 more minute. Any secret stuff? Any big aims or goals or targets that you'd like to accomplish this year that you're just thinking about?
Well, we do want to be the go-to eco map in Japan. Think big. Sorry, my baby's crying in the background, but
okay.
She came home sick today, but yes, that is our ambition. We do want to be the go-to, not just Eco Map, but we actually want to be the go-to people. You know, hey, let's go to EKOLOKAL to get the support. You know, help and tips and tricks and inspiration. You know, kind of just like that nice, you know, hangout house in the corner with the garden, and we drink beer at 3 p.m. on Fridays and talk about sustainability. You know, that kind of, we want EKOLOKAL to be that kind of like place, not like a map, not like a, you know, an account, but kind of like the place you go to. So yeah.
I
Yes.
think that's a great goal. It's something that can launch community support, and I think that is very unique and very necessary for so many of us who are seeking sustainability. So, best of luck, Helene. I know you're building most of it by yourself, right?
Yeah. But now we are very lucky because we have like actually Louis, who is part of the team and is doing an amazing job to help us make the website better, faster, because up till now it was a bit yeah.
Yeah, well, you could do with a little bit of corporate support, maybe. So I
Yes.
hope somebody with a company looking for some way to support a wonderful venture like yours, initiative, and maybe they can give you some support and you can move it forward a little bit by hiring more people. I know
Yes.
that's definitely the hardest thing, isn't it? To have enough time. You are both such busy women. To have enough time to do everything you want to do is a big challenge, right?
Yeah. And we are, to be honest, we are so lucky because we have some amazing people in the team, and we wouldn't be able to be where we are, like, if not for them. So a big shout out to them. So we are very lucky for that. But yeah, we want to make sure that at some point we can properly like, hire people and reward them for the time, they spend. So that's one of our goals. And yeah, like you mentioned, we are like planning on launching very soon services for companies. So hopefully we can kind of get a bit of cash in to achieve that.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope we can move forward with the vaccine a little bit in Japan. Things become a little bit easier. Hopefully, this is a good building time for you and creating the app and getting lots of information. And then by next year, when things are a bit more back to normal and we have inbound tourists, it'll be such a great resource. So it's not bad timing to do something like this where you're just starting to build, right?
Yes. No, you're right. I think you're right. We have to think about the future. And you're right. We are just at the beginning in Japan. Like, we are a bit behind from other countries, unfortunately. So it's the right time to start this kind of initiative. So if anybody, watching is thinking and hesitating about, starting that kind of ideas, in the sustainability space, I would say go for it, because it's now, like, things are going to change, I think.
I think so. This is a great time to build and network and make new connections and
Yes.
get lots of information together and support each other. So thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching today. It was wonderful having your questions and comments. Thank you so much. Tomorrow morning, we're talking with Axel Deberu. Helene, you would know his last name. He does a sustainable tourism venture called Peko Peko Box they're doing at the moment during coronavirus. So it'll be really interesting to follow up with him. I talked to him last year and see how their initiative is going to support local artisans and send the boxes of local craftsmen goods abroad to people who want to visit Japan but who can't come over right now. So that'll be interesting.
Nice.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So thank you guys so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.